Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Sy Huffer and Friends. This is a podcast designed to help you flourish at life and relationships. My name is Sy Huffer. I'm lead pastor at the Gathering Christian Church in Naples, Florida. And each episode, we call this Sy Huffer and Friends because I will either talk about a topic or bring on a friend of mine who will talk about a topic that is pertinent to you flourishing at life or in relationships. My friends, honestly, are amazing. I think I have the best friends in the world. And they have helped me flourish at life, and I think that they will help you flourish at life too. So if you like to follow along or to stay up to date with what's happening on the podcast, I ask you to follow, or subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube, and you will be able to follow us along there. This is a special episode. Every so often, we're going to dig into some book recommendations from me. My authors, the people that I read, become my friends. I don't meet them in person, but their words impact me in such a way that it has transformed my life. And I want to offer them up to you too. Just passing along something that's helped me flourish. I think it'll help you flourish too. So I'm going to give you some book recommendations. I have 5 today. Hopefully one of these or all of these could be helpful for you for whatever you're going through in life. The first book I want to recommend is a book on spiritual growth called Hunger for God by John Piper. The focus of this book is on the spiritual practice or discipline of fasting. It's like intentionally choosing not to eat for religious and spiritual reasons. And the overview of the book basically is this idea of why should we fast? Like, is it something that we should do or not do? What role does it play in our spiritual journey with Jesus? And really, the purpose of the book is a defense and apologetic for fasting. And so if you've ever thought or wondered like what the purpose is, why should we do it, this is a book for you. Really, John Piper digs into the idea that developing a hunger for God comes from experiencing hunger, depriving yourself from the things that fill you up and satiate your hunger here in the world to focus on desiring and hungering God above everything else. There is this quote that I want to share with you all that was really challenging to me. John Piper said this: "The weakness of our hunger for God is not because he is unsavory, but because we keep ourselves stuffed with other things. Perhaps then, the denial of our stomach's appetite for food might express or even increase our soul's appetite for God. What is at stake here is not just the good of our souls, but also the glory of God. God is most glorified in us when we are most satisfied in him. The fight of faith is a fight to feast on all that is God and all that God is for us in Christ. What we hunger for most, we worship." Man, that really challenged me. There's one of the Beatitudes that Jesus says in Matthew 5 is, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness." And I'll be the first to admit that I don't. Like, there's so often that I feel like pursuing right living and right beliefs and right behavior feels more like a chore than something I'm yearning and desiring for. Maybe that's just me, but that's something I definitely wrestle with. And so one of the things that I have learned about myself reading this book and working through it is that I don't desire or hunger for God or righteousness at all. Like, not very often is my prayer time or my Bible reading time or the decisions that I make that are hard, that are righteous decisions, are those because I yearn and hunger for them. I fill myself up with so many other things, other indulgences, especially when I'm stressed. I turn to food, that's my idol, to comfort me when I'm stressed instead of turning to God. And so since I've been reading this book and been working through this over the last, this spring, I've been really trying to fast twice a week. And that's just a challenge for you to think about doing if you've never tried to do that before. But Mondays, I try to fast from food. I fast 24 hours. So I will eat dinner on Sunday and then cut off food until Monday dinner. That's a way to go about fasting for the very first time. If you've not fasted before, I would encourage you to drink some juice when you fast. Your body will kind of have a shock. I'm not going for food that long. You need some sugars in your diet. And then on Thursdays, I try to fast from a full night of sleep. I try to get up a little bit earlier and do a half night prayer vigil. Excuse me. Oh, I'm about to sneeze. And do and do a half night prayer vigil. I'll pray from 3:30 to 6:30. That came from one of my first people who discipled me was a guy named Mark Moore, and he had us do an overnight prayer where we prayed through the night of prayer vigil. And it's based straight out of Scripture, Garden of Gethsemane, where Jesus prays through the night with his disciples. And he says, watch and pray that you will not fall into temptation. And so food and sleep are both things my body yearns for. And fasting is that discipline of saying no to the body and saying yes to the spirit. So those are some things I'm trying to do to live that book out. That's the first one. Here's a second book. This one was on pastoral leadership specifically. If you're looking to be a pastor or you are a pastor, this book I can't recommend enough. It is called Leadership Pain by Sam Chand. I actually have a copy of it right here. Leadership Pain by Sam Chand. This book is on the pain of leadership. The premise is this, that growth equals change equals loss, and loss equals pain. So growth equals pain. When I read that for the first time in this book, it wrecked me. This book is probably top 5 of my favorite books of all time. I can't recommend it enough for people to read. It is worth buying just for the introductions to every chapter. There's a story from a different leader, a different Christian leader, pastor, CEO of a non-for-profit organization that is sharing their stories of pain in ministry. And what they repeat over and over again is this idea that you'll grow only to the threshold of your pain. And that wrecked me. Because, when I first read this book, it was before I'd really led in a large way a church. And I was afraid because I knew that my pain moments hadn't happened yet. That I was going to be going through seasons of deep, dark, hard pain. And that I would have to increase my threshold in order to lead through that, to grow. And it's true. It did happen over the last 10 years. I've experienced a lot of that. And this book has been a good source of comfort for me. One of the things that was most challenging in this book is this right here. He said this. He said when he talks to different pastors and leaders, the author, he would say 10% of your people are demons. 10% right off the bat are demons, and everyone laughs a little bit. And he says, so if you have 100 people, how many demons do you have? And everyone yells 10. And he goes, and if you have 1,000 people, how many demons do you have? And they say 100. And he goes, if you have 10,000 people, how many demons do you have? And they say 1,000. And everyone's joking and laughing. And then he kind of sweeps their legs out from under them, and he says this: if you can't handle 10 devils, why would God trust you with 100 or 1,000 of them? If you and your church will grow only if you raise the threshold of your pain, the question is simple. How many devils can you handle? In other words, how many naysayers does it take to steal your joy, erode your enthusiasm, and consume your time so that you lose focus on your God-inspired vision? That number is the limit of your growth. Whew. That, my friends, was earth-shattering to me when I first realized that. The ability to be able to handle naysayers and to pastor them and to care for them, but also to not let them distract you or create sideways energy that takes away from the focus of the vision God has given you is so difficult to do. I learned that's what I learned about myself when I read this book, is that I get distracted by naysayers way too easily. Their comments to just go through my head again. I feel like I have to answer them or please them or get them all on board. And the reality is you're not going to get everybody on board. A clear vision is going to get people on board, and it's also going to get people off of the bus, right? And so you got to increase your threshold of pain. That was my takeaway. One of the things I've tried to do since reading that book is making a workout, a physical exercise and workout, a part of my regular routine each week, just to increase my threshold of pain, to experience pain, and to not give up when pain happens. So that's the second book, Leadership Pain. Really good. You should check it out. Third book, Leadership. This is for leadership and inspiration. I try to inspire myself with biographies pretty regularly, people's great leaders that I respect. And one of them was this book called Team of Rivals by Doris Kearns Goodwin. This book is a biography on the presidency of Abraham Lincoln. And really, actually, the movie Lincoln that came out several years ago was based off of this book. And the purpose, the specific angle this book takes is that when Abraham Lincoln ran for president, he was kind of everyone's second choice. There were these other people running for president at the same time, and they didn't want each other to win, so they all kind of chose Abraham Lincoln. Well, he turned around and asked all of his political rivals to be on his cabinet. And together, they kept the Republican Party and the North, the Union, unified in this really turbulent time during the Civil War by having all of his rivals, his team of rivals, serve on his cabinet with him. This book it's long and it takes a while to read, but it's fascinating to watch how Lincoln navigates so many different difference of opinions and so many naysayers and so much conflict and so many extreme opinions, and yet keeps them all aligned on the bigger picture of preserving the Union. This was a book I wrestle with constantly in leadership. There's a paradox that I don't think I've tried. I definitely know I've not figured out how to navigate. But I can share the struggle with you, and maybe you can figure it out. And if you do, please let me know. But there's this incredible difficult paradox you have to navigate between alignment and conflict. Okay, you have to align on the main thing. Abraham Lincoln didn't ask the presidents of the South, of the Confederacy, to be on his cabinet. They weren't aligned on the main thing, right? One was seceding from the Union, and the other one was about preserving the Union. And yet within the larger picture, the larger vision, Abraham Lincoln was able to find people that aligned with that larger vision, yet had difference of opinions on how to live it out. Their methods were different than the mission, is what I think another way we would talk about it. And so while you have to be aligned on the main thing, you have to at the same time create an environment for disagreement and conflict to occur to get the best decisions moving forward to achieve that big main thing. You see, if you have a bunch of yes people around you that don't actually tell you what they think, you don't actually have alignment. You have what Patrick Lencioni calls artificial harmony. Where there is no conflict or disagreements, there is artificial harmony. He calls this one of the 5 dysfunctions of a team in his book. Lencioni says that fear of conflict comes from an absence of trust. If you don't trust the people that you're on the team with, you're not going to have good, hard conflict with them. So if you're not having conflict, it's not real unity and alignment, it's artificial harmony. So here's my big takeaway from this book. So how do you maintain alignment on the larger stuff and then mind for conflict on the smaller methods? How do you align around mission and have conflict and disagreements and really healthy dialogue about the methods? That's really what that book has really caused me to be aware of. Andy Stanley says something like this, that there are problems that you solve and tensions that you manage. And I think this is not a problem that you just solve and you're done with for forever, but this is a tension between alignment and conflict that you're constantly going to manage in leadership, no matter what you're doing. So that's the third book that I recommend. Really good book, great resource, and it's a great movie. Here's a fourth. Okay, this is Monotheism by J.D. Lionheart. This is one of my best friends of all time. Wrote this book. This is a fantastic resource. It's short, and yet don't let the brevity of the pages fool you for the density of the pages. This book is dense, okay? And this book really deals with the philosophical issues that get in the way of faith. J.D. Lionheart, he got his PhD at Cambridge in philosophical theology. He is one of the smartest guys I know, and he has constantly had to wrestle with faith. And he has gone down every rabbit hole you can think of where it comes to philosophical questions and conundrums and issues that have come up over the last 2,000, 2,500, 3,000 years that can be obstacles for people to choose to believe in Jesus. And he has wrestled through these things and continues to wrestle through these things and continues to believe in Jesus and to follow Jesus. And so it is a dense book, okay, yet it is fun and accessible. And if you aren't used to philosophical conversations, that's okay. The subtitle of this book is great. It's here. It goes like this: an absurdly arrogant attempt to answer all the problems of the last 2,000 years in one night at a pub. This is my buddy John. You will love this book, especially if you have a lot of questions about faith and you're a deep thinker. This book is great for you. One of the things that, as I read through this book, it reinforced to me that my faith in God has a lot of evidence for it. There's a lot of reason behind it. The people have gone through, incredibly smart people, C.S. Lewis and Anselm and Thomas Aquinas. These guys have wrestled through these philosophical conundrums over the centuries to give to the church this really solid foundation for why we can intellectually believe. It does what Paul says in 2 Corinthians 10 tells us to do. It says to take every thought captive, and he does that. So that's a great resource for you. The last book I'm going to recommend, this is just a fun book. I've been reading this series for several years now. It's called Red Rising. This is just a great fantasy series. There's 2 trilogies. There's the original trilogy. I've read that twice. And then there's the second trilogy that happens basically 10, 15 years later from where the first trilogy ended. And book 6 came out just a little bit over a year and a half ago or so. So I've been rereading the whole both trilogies to finally get to book 6. I haven't read book 6 yet, so don't give me any spoilers on that. But it's a great series if you love fantasy novels. It's about this world that exists in this caste system, and everyone has a different color. There's oranges and grays and pinks and golds that are at the top. Golds are at the top of society. At the bottom of society is the reds. And the whole series is about reds rising up and creating a revolution to overthrow the society. So it's great. You should check it out. There's some great characters, great leadership moments. One of my favorite leadership moments in any book is in Red Rising, the first book of the series. So I really enjoy that. Hopefully these books could be helpful for you if you like reading fantasy or leadership or philosophy or biographies or spiritual growth books. Please give me your recommendations, what you like, books that you would recommend to me. I would love to learn those books. I'm always looking for good books to read. Comment on this video. Just let me know what those are. You can message me on Facebook or Instagram. Hope these are helpful. Remember, you are the product of your relationships, your habits, and your decisions. Part of those relationships are the books that you read. So before we go, I also want you to remember that you are made for more, so don't settle for anything less. Have a great day.